I sure hope this maiden voyage is nothing like the Titanic.
We're going to Europe next week. I'd like to book passage on the Queen.
There it is!
First time across, right?
Our trip to Europe. The great family myth, as Elliot calls it. Finally coming true right before our eyes.
Well, now then, let's double-check everything just to be sure.
In bright, beautiful, living color, Life magazine's June 27, 1955 issue, volume 38, number 26, featuring the cover and cover story, the crew of Constitution, an important factor in our biggest tourist exodus, poses for family portrait. Number 1, we have the engineering staff. Number 2, deck staff. Number 3, assistant cooks. Number 4, stewards and baggagemen. Number 5, master and staff. Number 6, stewardesses. Number 7, nurses, hostess, ship's officers. And number 8, chefs. It really does take an entire village to run even one of our smaller ocean liners, superliners as they once were called. And might I say, isn't it so very nice to see a bright ray of optimism in not only our country, in the United States of America, but throughout continents, to see people, and in max quantities, going on vacation, traveling to all different parts of the globe. This is a good time for the great luxury liners of our era. And we will be covering all of this in our featured article on pages 34 through 39. Pressing on to Cunard Pier, New York, hundreds of excited voyagers and well-wishers prepare to go aboard the liner Queen Elizabeth. Europe, here they come. US tourists take off by hundreds of thousands in the biggest vacation exodus. Through the loading gates of steamship piers and airports, US tourists were on the move last week in the greatest vacation exodus ever. The peak of the travel season was at hand, and for hundreds of thousands of vacationists, this was the wonderful fulfillment of all their eager anticipation and painstaking preparation. They were on their way to Europe. There are 70 passenger liners plying the Atlantic, all with spick and span crews like the Constitution. In order to accommodate the maximum number of voyagers, port turnaround times are cut to the minimum. Almost all ships have been solidly booked for months. Airlines were reaching an entirely new category of transatlantic traveler with installment travel now, pay later plans, and with tours that enabled people to see Europe and get back without taking more than 2 or 3 weeks from their jobs. Their US to Europe business was at least 10% better than 1954's. Despite a strike in England, which forced Cunard to cancel 6 round-trip voyages, the June through July peak would bring up to 600,000 the year's total of Americans going to Europe just on vacation, 2/3 by ship, the rest by plane. Travel agencies, steamship companies, and airlines were offering many kinds of accommodations and tour plans, covering the wide range of travel budgets, time allotments, and travelers' interest. There are low-cost students' tours and luxurious grand tours. There are tours for lovers of art galleries, opera, and even nightclubs. All of this was producing a bonanza for the countries to be visited. US tourists were expected to spend nearly $100 million more this year than last, bringing their total expenditure in search of culture and fun to nearly $1.5 billion. Whatever the difference in means or tastes or destination, every Europe-bound traveler shared with every other the thrill of departure and the excitement of being taken off to new places by today's swift, luxurious carriers. Gala sailing in New York brings vacationers to the railing of American export lines Independence to shower colored streamers toward their friends and relatives and wave paper pom-poms for noon departure. The line encourages festive sailings, which make travelers feel good, and make those left behind want to travel. Comfort afloat and gaiety afloat for all fares. The Europe-bound vacationer can cross the ocean in comfort no matter what his class of fare. Airlines and steamship companies offer tourist class space, which generally is harder to get because it costs much less than first class, but lacks little inconvenience. The Super G Constellation shown in the cutaway painting was designed for both classes, and its seat arrangement can be altered in an hour. Tourist passengers occupy seats of the conventional type, forward compartment. On some first-class flights, passengers have more spacious reclining seats with leg rests, middle compartment. There are also extra fare flights with individual cabins and berths. The emphasis steamship lines place on tourist travel is summed up in the elegant 29,100-ton CRISTOFORO Colombo, shown in the cutaway painting above, which the Italian line put into service last year. While giving the first and cabin class their full due, the CRISTOFORO Colombo gives tourist class more passenger accommodations, 703 as against 225 first class and 320 cabin class. It also provides tourist class with exceptional recreational facilities, even including an outdoor swimming pool. The list at right is a key to the cutaway drawing above. 4 different set of passenger accommodations, and 39 joyous, fancy-free, and public spaces so that they may enjoy their trip to Europe and back. Crowded docks in the biggest sailing week of the year are filled, from front, by the Independence, America, United States, New York, Liberté, Queen Mary, and Mauritania. Busy airport. Boston's Logan Airport loads passengers on Super Strato Cruiser for Europe as airliners overhead make streaks of light in time exposure. And on page 39, we feature the biggest, grandest ship in the world, the Queen Elizabeth. Queen's record turnaround. A delayed sailing brought the 83,673-ton Queen Elizabeth into New York last week, 11.5 hours late. Falling behind at this busiest of all times can involve prodigious loss of both money and friends. While it debarked its 2006 westbound passengers, including Soviet Foreign Minister Molotov, the Queen went frantically about the job of getting ready to sail as fast as she could, sweeping, changing, provisioning, fueling, and embarking a capacity of 2,233 passengers. The world's biggest liner picked up 6.5 hours on her tardy schedule, and after a hectic 17 hours 11 minutes in port, swept out, having set a new record for a quick turnaround. And the photos to display it all by our Life magazine team. Coming in late at 1:16 a.m., the Queen Elizabeth, her bow as high as a 6-story building, looms over a few greeters as her mooring ropes spring taut. Taking on oil, minutes later, the liner starts loading 3,100 tons of fuel through hose line on her port side. She also loads 5,200 tons of water. Unloading baggage. The ship's boom lowers a sling it had hoisted from hatchway. Vessel arrived with 8,024 pieces of baggage and 12 automobiles. Taking off laundry at 7 a.m., longshoremen trundle sacks from the storage room. Some were laundered before the ship sailed, the rest will be picked up later. Sweeping the salons, the ship steward tidies up the first-class dining room at 10 a.m. Debarking passengers were served a breakfast before they got off. Taking a break, crew members line up at 11:30 a.m. for beer at the cruise pub, the Pig and Whistle, which has just opened. They pay for their own beer. Bringing on laundry, a longshoreman arrives with a bundle of towels at 10:30 a.m. This linen had been left by Queen Mary the previous week. Opening a flour sack, a ship's baker prepares to make rolls and pastry for the incoming passengers. The bakery operates around the clock. And last but not least, the stewards sort gift packages for voyagers already boarding at 2:50 p.m. There are many great and enriching articles in June 27th, 1955's issue of Life magazine, to be ready to purchase wherever magazines are sold. This has been Matthew S. Richards. Subscribe for more ocean liner related content, and I will see you in the next broadcast.